I'd like to talk a little bit about storytelling and the significance of storytelling for design. There's a lot of discussion about connectivity and collaborative design and connecting and social networking and blah, 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 blah. I mean, you guys hear it so much. And I think sometimes we forget about exactly what that connectivity comes from. I think as human beings, we all like to hear about each other and about what people do, stories, anecdotes, and that's what engages us. It's not really necessarily the connectivity itself, or not really even the ability to contribute to a design. It's about being part of a story. It's about being part of the creation of an idea. And so, for us, my design agency is called UXUS, and ironically, UXUS, you wonder what the word comes from. It actually means you times us, because it's about collaborating with our clients and collaborating with the people that we work with on an even level. So I'd like to start, first of all, with something that Anna said this morning, which I thought was well, she said a couple things that were really amazing, but the one thing that she said was that everything is becoming 3D. And our agency, when we create narrative design, actually doesn't look at just verbal or digital stories. We specialize and only do 3D. We only make environments, objects, environments like restaurants, hotels, stores, products, things like that. And we try to infuse the projects that we work with some kind of narrative, some kind of extra layer or extra meaning that enriches the experience for the people that are using whatever it is that we created. So once upon a time, customers listened to advertising. That's a huge shift, actually, what's happening in the marketplace, is that ads used to be very, very important, and now they're not so important. Now, actually, your friend is important. Your friend recommending to use something, or your friend that belongs to a group, is actually what drives you to buy a product. This whole conversation that I'm going to be talking with you about today is all around consumer goods. That's what we specialize in. We specialize in making things to sell more things. So, unfortunately, maybe it will become sustainable, hopefully in the future, but right now, most of our projects aren't. Consumers listening to advertising, it told them what to think and what to feel. Today, experience matters more, and the visitor's imagination is just as important as the designer's. And when we're talking about collaboration, that's really the big shift, is that the designer used to dictate the experience, and now that's not the case anymore. It's actually the user's imagination is becoming equally, if not more important, than the designer's. And what that means for design, actually, is huge, because it means that you can do design that's ambiguous, that leaves an open story for someone to personally interpret. So people should be invited to interpret things their own way and start telling themselves personal stories. So when you start creating a product, an object, a room, whatever it might be, what is it that can be added to that leaves a certain level of ambiguity that allows for personal interpretation? Because what also that does is it allows for a continual freshness of experience. Because every time you walk into a space that's ambiguous, you might be seeing something that you didn't see before, or you might be experiencing something that you didn't see before. And it can be very, very simple. It can be very analog. What we're talking about here is actually basic. It's just a different way of approaching design. So the goal is to create a place where culture and commerce intersect, a place delivering powerful narratives that are about feeling instead of reading. So this idea, and this is another thing that Anna said this morning about sort of the omni-channel, is very, very true. It's like there is now a very fine line between commerce and culture, and sometimes commerce generates culture. And in our society, that's becoming even more and more important. Being part of something that you're buying also gives you a certain level of social status, or it gives you a feeling of belonging. And there's a lot of companies now that are approaching their marketing and their product generation with that point of view. So brands aspire to create deeper connections with endlessly distracted and cynical consumers. And I have to say, even our group here today, they're on their phones. They're not necessarily paying attention to speakers or doing emails. So how do you get people, and I always tell my designers this, how do you get them to look up? How do you get them to pay attention to whatever it is that you've done? Because right now, everyone is so immersed in their own personal communication and storytelling that you need to get their attention so that you can tell your story to them. So storytelling in design becomes even more crucial. In our opinion, storytelling is the new frontier. So the idea here is to create stories beyond words. So in other words, you don't use necessarily words, but you use an environment that invites interpretation and narrative. So I'd like to start with an obvious place to begin, which of course everyone loves stories, and children in particular love stories. And our team has worked on several kids projects, and one of the ones that we're very proud of is for a very large corporation that's very controversial. Some people think it's good, some people think it's bad. So this idea of child's play for us, again, is show, don't tell. So it's like, at school, at least in the US, it's like, it's show and tell day. Well, show, don't tell. Just create something that people can interpret, and in this case, children. So for McDonald's, we created a new play area. I don't know, I'm sure you're all aware that McDonald's in Europe has had a huge step change in the type of environment that they offer their customers. And what they've done is they've tried to make environments that create more linger time. They want people, it's not fast food anymore, so it's fast food, slow stay. They want you to grab the food, and they want you to stay and linger in their spaces longer. And so they've created much more welcoming types of restaurants, and they wanted a play area to go along with that. And I don't know how many of you have children, but when you take them to McDonald's, they have these little cages with the balls inside, and you kind of shove your child in and lock the door, and you leave them in there until you're done eating, and then you pull them out and you go home. So what we did is we created something different. We created this idea of a storytelling environment that both the child and the parent could participate in. Because with those ball pit things, you just shove your kid in, you lock the door, and you get away. And maybe that's a nice thing for you because it's a little break from your kid. But this space offers the opportunity for both your child and the adult to go inside and experience the story of food. So the reason it's called McVillage is because it's 3 little cottages. And one is the farm, the other is the market, and the last one is the kitchen. And so you can see here that it's a highly saturated graphic environment. And again, the omni-channel. So what is a graphic designer doing, and what is an architect doing, and what is an experienced designer doing? They're all lumped together into one solution for the customer. And these are very banal objects for example, this is just a graphic. And this is, again, where the digital and the analog world combine. It's just a graphic with the little dots on it. And when you push the dot, it has a sensor. And so when you push it, it goes ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. So the child, throughout the entire space, has the ability to make sounds and interact with the actual environment itself in a very simple, dumb kind of analog way. This big thing here that looks like an egg is supposed to be an egg. It's just an egg chair that we painted to look like a little quail's egg. And inside is the story of a chicken being born. So if the child wants to sit down inside the egg, he can emerge and create an imaginary story of him being a chicken being born out of an egg. Or he can just sit, or he can shove his sister in there and kick her, or whatever they do. Again, more playful things. So, you're not supposed to throw plates. So here's a cabinet where there's a handprint which intuitively tells the child, hit. And so when they hit the plate, it sounds like it's smashing. And then, a trolley, a food trolley that you see in a grocery store, it becomes a pinball machine. The pictures of the cow, the chicken, and the pig on the floor actually have a meat scale on the wall, so when the child sits on it, they can weigh themselves against those animals. So if, for example, a cow, you need like 5 or 6 children standing on it in order to make the needle move. Or with the chicken, if the child stands on it, the needle goes boom really fast. So it's an exploratory environment that uses a graphic language to create a narrative, and also to allow the parent and the child to explore and talk about things and potentially learn in a fun way in an unexpected place, McDonald's. Another case study is the Child's Atelier. And this is a brand whose muse was the woman who lives her life as a work of art. And so we looked at this, okay, it's a woman who lives her life as a work of art. How would a woman who's an artist, like a Frida Kahlo, create a store for her children. And so we looked at not necessarily using the typical materials that you would find to create a retail space, but actually going out and finding found materials and reconfiguring them and recombining them together to create something new the way an artist would, and to make do with elements. So, cabinets become display cases, old furniture bits become walls. This is a way to create, again, a narrative about the brand, but also to create something, hopefully, that becomes a somatic marker for people visiting the store. Chairs are shelves. I mean, if you can imagine a child walking into a space like this, all of a sudden, everything becomes magical. Like at home, they'll see a chair, and they'll maybe, hopefully, they won't start stacking them up, making a shelf out of them. Mom will probably kill them. But, we're here to create stories, but we're also here, and I'm going to bring the consumeristic aspect back in, to drive product. We're here to help them increase their sales, and we're help them to be able to sell more things. And so one of the insights we had is if a mother and a child are in a store together, the mother's priority is the child, not buying. So if the child does not want to be in the store, the mother will leave the store more quickly than if the child does want to be in the store. And so one of the secrets that we had for this particular little shop is that we created all these little nooks and crannies throughout the space where children would just discover. And inside there would be a small world where they can play. We even had a laptop with digital games inside. And what this would do is this would create more linger time for the child to want to be in the store, hence the mother hopefully purchasing more. Coloring book. This is a character that, again, if you have children, you might be familiar with. Nijntje, or Miffy, is a little bunny rabbit. This is actually the rabbit that inspired Hello Kitty. Dick Bruna is a Dutch child's book author. And so they were going to make a shop to sell all of their licensed products, which is like, horrible, like just exploiting children to sell more stuff. And so we thought, well, what can we do for Nijntje to make her have more of a world? And since she lives in a book, we thought we would make a coloring book for her store. So we made a coloring book village of houses, a little garden, picket fences, and again, so simple. We've just taken ordinary, and those of you who design retail, ordinary gondola fixtures, ordinary slot walls, and cladded them with just very simple images taken directly from the book. And all of a sudden, Nijntje lives in a world of her own that is a little village. As you notice, it's completely uncolored, even though it's a coloring book, right? Because the products and the things that are being sold for Nijntje actually create the color and the atmosphere. So all of this stuff about storytelling, in the end, this is exactly what all the companies that we work for want to happen. I love it. The iPhone syndrome. Fanatical, crazy, I've got to have it no matter what. So in order for that to happen, you have to start creating stories that people fall in love with. And actually, that's one of our mottos, we craft brand experiences that people fall in love with. So the idea that someone, no matter what, they don't have to know anything. They just walk in and they just go, oh, I love it. That's the reaction that as a company we always strive to do, and it seems to be the reaction that a lot of our clients want to create as well for themselves. That irresistible, oh my gosh, look at that, I'll buy it. Home reflections. H&M, I don't know if you're aware of this, H&M has a home collection based on their fashion. So they leverage, it's all just soft goods, so pillows, sheets, blankets, etc. And they leverage their fashion know-how and make these items. And for many years, they've actually had it, I think, for 6 years now, 7 years. And for the first 4 years, it's only been digital. It's only been sold through the internet in selected countries. And they were testing it to see what the response would be. Well, the response was great. And then they moved into the analog world. And the brief here was to create something that no one has ever seen, to create a launch that would stick in the minds of consumers, and to create a launch that would separate them from the other big Swedish company, IKEA, because obviously they're going after IKEA's soft goods market. So what we did is this crazy thing that I'll talk you through it because it's a little difficult to understand. What you're seeing is an entire house that has been reflected as if it's sitting on a mirror. So the up and the down of the piece of furniture is reflected as you would see it in a mirror. They're just props, and they're there only to show the soft goods. And the idea here was to follow H&M's motto as being a fun fashion retailer. So what we did is fun fashion for the home. So you have a reflected sofa, and what we wanted to communicate was your boring old sofa at home can be completely transformed by accessorizing it with H&M goods. So again, using a fashion frame of mind to create a home shop. And so you can see here on this particular sofa that you have this kind of frilly, pinky, girly thing at the bottom, and then this kind of black and white and gold, very, very Russian, actually, probably, for what we were talking about earlier, a kind of look at the top. The shop that we created actually had a whole different type of shopping mechanism. It was about styling. It was this little kind of metal palette that you would put your magnets on. And if you're interested in seeing it, there's actually one here in Helsinki at the H&M. This particular thing that you're seeing, these two projects, were for the launch of the shop. And they were used to create a word of mouth, and it was extremely effective. We have a PR person in our agency, and we had 2 volumes of PR this thick from these images. The people respond to strong visuals so powerfully. Everything is about visuals on the internet. And the second project we did for them, the second installation for this particular shop, was the celebration of the fact that they moved from digital to analog. And so what we did is we created an analog search engine. So what you're seeing is a search engine. These are the icons, and you can click on them. But instead of clicking, you yank the cord. And when you yank the cord, so you can either go price or graphic or color, when you yank the cord, products on the table come up. So you can search through their collection by pulling cords. Now, okay. See, it's the technology of the future. There you go. Levi's, quality guaranteed. I don't know if you know the story about Levi's, but this is the famous patch that's on the back of the jean. And the reason it's there, and the reason that there's 2 horses pulling a jean apart, is because Levi Strauss, when he founded Levi's, said that his jeans were indestructible, and he would replace any pair of jeans that fell apart. And so some crazy farmer somewhere decided to prove him wrong, and he took 2 horses, and he actually put it between the jeans and yanked a pair of jeans apart. And he put the jeans in an envelope. He wrote to Levi Strauss and said, keep good to your promise. Levi Strauss, of course, did. And so Levi's did a collaboration with Ray Kabakua, who's a very famous comme des garçons, for those of you who know fashion. And this is in London in Dover Street Market. And so we were asked to do a shop-in-shop. And what we did is we reproduced that in life size of horses pulling a jean apart. And there's the jean being highlighted in between 2 horses. A field day. This is an interesting project because the other ones that I've just showed you obviously are done to sell products and to promote brands. And this one actually was done internally. This was something that we wanted to pitch for to redo the Nike canteen at the European headquarters. And it was a very interesting project because they didn't want a cafeteria. What they had, and I know personally from being there, was kind of like a large public bathroom at a train station for a cafeteria. It was really highly unappealing. And they wanted to change that all around, and they wanted to make a place where people could go and have spontaneous meetings and meet and personalize their experience. So basically, instead of a canteen, a social hub. And so what we did was we articulated the space and added basically what we're calling a landscape of furniture. So by mixing up various types of furniture typographies, you allow the people who are using a space to personalize the space as they wish, depending on their mood. And this is a very, a very UXUS solution. We took picnic, I got so excited. We took picnic benches. We saved so much money with these. We took picnic benches from a normal hardware store, and we slapped a graphic on them and stuck them in the canteen. Why not? Why not have a picnic while you're at work? Picnic benches have this emotional resonance of having fun and being, or at least in the US, of having fun and being outdoors, why not stick it in the canteen? And then, of course, traditional cafeteria type seating, and then these funny little kind of cabanas. And in the background, you see these kind of angle poised lamps coming up. That's like a library table that actually has plugs for your computers, and everything in this cafeteria has a plug for your computer, so that if you decide that you don't want to work in your office, you can pick up your stuff and go there. Very progressive of Nike. And again, a very big open space that we tried to humanize by creating these little private nooks if you desire to use them. And then just as a little side note, again, stories. People want to know about people. These are the menus of athletes that they use for their training for different sports. So as you can see here, this is Maria Sharapova's recipe for success, is what we're calling it. And this is something that she does and eats while she's in training. And so we decided, why not give a little bit of inspiration for the people who are in the cafeteria about what they could eat, in relation to their favorite athletes while they're training. So, well, we were talking about stories that people fell in love with. And I want to talk a little bit about two stories that were said yesterday that I thought were actually fantastic. One was from GE, and the story of the CAT scan and the girl with the brain tumor. What a horrible situation. Your child has a brain tumor. And GE was describing this whole story that they spun around the machine so that the child would actually be removed from her horrible ordeal for a few minutes. She was no longer getting a CAT scan because of her brain tumor. She was an undersea diver for however long the CAT scan took. That's a pretty powerful story, and that's an amazing thing that, in terms of resonance and emotional connectivity between that family and that machine and that brand. And that's how powerful good storytelling can be. The other one that I found really intriguing and fantastic was Marimekko, the story about the consumer being in the store. And when the salesperson went up to help her in New York City, she said, no, I'm here for color therapy. Well, I mean, what kind of connection is that? You're going to a store and a brand for your emotional well-being. You're beyond fabric at that point. And I was telling Jeremiah yesterday, because I'd been to that store in New York. And New York's a very gray city. It's a gray city even when it's sunny. And when you walk into Marimekko, it's suddenly spring. It's this incredible, evocative, awakening experience. It's like going out into a garden or a field because of all the fabulous colors and patterns. And it's an amazing, simple thing that has a lot of emotional resonance. And I think, the fact that these things are being shifted, like tumor brain scan to undersea diving, fabric printed nothing, anyone can print fabric, to emotional therapist. I mean, it's an incredible shift, and those are the things that are challenging designers today. That is what we're actually doing. We're actually creating scripts. Products and other things are becoming secondary, and I think Anna touched a little bit on that when she was talking about the megatrends, and it's true. And this whole, what Anna also said, Anna might as well come up here and present, what Anna also said this morning about sort of the mixture of materials and surprising people with the familiar. That the value of a luxury item versus the value of a mundane item are no longer equal. Or they're equal, let's put it that way. They're no longer high-low. High-low for the new generation doesn't exist. It's all one thing. And so by misplacing mundane things, materials, objects, you can create what we call everyday wonder. So Beauty's Marketplace. This is a company, Skin62. It's a Dutch company that sells cosmetics, and they're famous for introducing new brands into the market. And people go to their stores to see whatever new kind of creative cosmetic companies are out there. And so we love this idea. Just like a market, they constantly are reinventing themselves. They're constantly moving the store around. They're constantly bringing in new vendors, as you say. And so we use materials that would normally be used in a market in unexpected places. So here, pressed tin ceilings that you normally see in the roofs of old European markets become a door. It creates a dado in the space. But it also, as you can see from the furnishings, we've also taken up the idea of using like crates from a market stall to present fine cosmetics. So this space continuously changes and reinvents itself. Here's the cosmetic area, the place where you apply makeup. And instead of saying beauty and makeup, we take 10,000 mirrors, stick it on the wall, and again, intuitively, you know that that's where you need to go to have that done. Ella, the table d'hôte. Shutters. Old, rusty, banged up, yucky shutters. 500 pair of shutters creates an anechoic skin on the interior of a restaurant. And all of a sudden takes a new built space and creates a type of poetry in the space that you cannot get any other way other than having an old object. And so the use of recycled materials creates, of course, a sustainability aspect, but more importantly, creates a higher emotional resonance. The idea of plates on a wall become lamps. So we've been talking about big spaces and customer journeys that are immersive. And just to give you an idea of how important this trend is, on Oxford Street, Topshop gets 60,000 visitors a day through the store. So the importance of their consumer experience at that touch point is incredibly, incredibly high. And what's happening with a lot of companies right now is that they're divesting. You're hearing, oh my God, everybody's closing stores because of the digital revolution, and online sales are replacing shopping. That's bullshit. Online sales are not replacing shopping. In fact, there's more importance now to the physical space than ever before. What's happening is that stores and companies are divesting from stores in B and C locations. They're closing those stores because those sales are being replaced by the digital sales easily. So much lower overhead, higher profit margin, blah, 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 blah. More convenience for the customer, more integration with storytelling, all those kinds of things that are a plus. And then in A locations, in cities that have high traffic or high prestige or cultural hubs throughout the world, they're opening what we're calling ambassador stores that basically allow customers to walk in and be fully immersed in an experience or in a brand. So bottled up emotion. So we've been talking about spaces, and let's talk about objects. One of the things we do is packaging and branding. So messages just don't come in bottles. We do a lot of wine stuff, probably because our office is in Napa, the California office that we have. Sex in the City, and then I just realized that this is maybe not appropriate, and the name of this brand is Indulge. And so this is a new wine brand in a very, very unique sustainable packaging. It's a bag that you buy your wine in. And apparently it's great for the wine, but more importantly, it gives you a blank canvas to tell a story. And you can see here that we've decided to link high luxury shoes with wine. Who are we targeting here? And we're linking it to Chardonnay, because Chardonnay is what you drink when you're in cities, having fabulous art openings and indulging in culture and shopping. And so this whole range of wines uses visual narrative to communicate wine as a lifestyle rather than a product. So it suits your need or your mood at the time. Oh, I'm feeling kind of shoppy, I'm feeling kind of picnicky, I'm feeling kind of beachy. And therefore, the wines align to those type of lifestyles. So it's very simple, but it's a huge shift in terms of how that product is communicated. And then on the other end of the spectrum, so this is obviously a cheap wine. On the other end of the spectrum is the really expensive wine. So this is Buchella. Buchella means mouthful in Italian, and the little red dot that you see in the middle of the screen there is their logo. And what it is, it's modeled after, I don't know if you're all familiar with the Testavan. Those of you that are French probably are. It hangs around the sommelier's neck. It's a little silver cup that when they go into the cellars, they use to taste the wine. And when they pour the wine, the cup has bumps so that they can see the color of the wine more clearly. And what you're seeing, the little dots, are actually the silver bumps coming up, and the red is the wine. Okay, dumb. But what we did is we decided to say, we're not going to put a name on the bottle. We're just going to make this iconic symbol, basically, for their brand, which is the Testavan with a red wax seal. So very, very modern and very, very old at the same time. Now, the reason there's no name on the bottle is because this bottle in a restaurant in the US goes about between $4 to $550 a bottle, $550 a bottle. So it's an extremely expensive wine, and something that is probably purchased to have either a special occasion or impress your girlfriend or whatever it might be. And so having a blank label allows, and this is like a watercolor texture, allows the person who's giving the bottle or who's having a dinner or in a restaurant to sign the bottle. So, to my darling, on our 25th anniversary, love, Joe, XXXO. So the bottle no longer becomes an object of status. It becomes a memento of an event. Hence, also the brand becomes the memento of the event. So the link between the emotional moment and this particular brand becomes extremely strong once the bottle is personalized. And of course, this is completely up to the consumer. And then going further vertically, so, okay, we got some kind of interesting bottles, and now we've got this brand Maris, which stands for undiluted quality. That's their brand platform. So again, like the other wine, is extremely expensive. And we created this crazy etched label that's, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's really expensive. It's really nice. But the most important thing about this wine is that when you pour it out, it's almost black. It's so deep and rich. And so they wanted to create a winery and a tasting place that reflected that quality of undiluted quality. And so what we did is we created a space that had a lot of luxurious and deep surfaces. And then you can see here, these are the tasting tables. And you can see that we didn't make them big on purpose, because this is the kind of wine that each glass is like 25 bucks. So the specialness and the preciousness of that wine should be on a pedestal, just like a precious art object. It's liquid art. So let's show it as liquid art. And the whole space where they test is a series of pedestals that you can only put 1 or 2 glasses on. The rest of the space is equally as luxurious and deep. This is the caves underground, and this is the event space underground. And what we did here is we actually painted this section of the cave the color of the wine, so that you would actually immerse yourself in the Maris red, which is what's so famous about this particular wine, and also the taste. And then back to a very commercial brand, Heineken. Heineken, of course, is very famous for its iconic bottle, the green bottle with the red star. And in the US, this is a very premium beer. And so we were asked to create a premium airport experience using, obviously, their brand. And so we created an icon in an iconic way. And so we created this band of brand in the bar that we created for the airport. And the weird thing about this is I didn't realize, but people stop and take their pictures in front of this thing. Because people who are such fans of Heineken think this is the most amazing thing. They wish they would have this at home. I'm sure you're all familiar with the crazy screaming walk-in closet ad that was played globally, that, there are people that are like that over this brand, and it's amazing that you have, this is in Newark Airport, Newark International Terminal C, by the way, if you want to go visit it. The people who are running the bar say, yeah, people stop, and they take a picture in front of it. So at this point, we've only been talking about commercial applications of this idea of storytelling. One of the other things that we really love doing is personal spaces. We do private clients who are open to being tortured by our design agency, and we create personal spaces, which is a very, very good exercise. And I recommend anyone who does environments or architecture to take on a private client, because there's nothing like a private client to really fine-tune your ability to design an experience for an individual. It's the best way to learn how to design for a consumer. And for us, personal spaces should be experiences that set up the possibility for change and transformation. And so we've had clients that were not so wealthy who became extremely wealthy. And that transition from having no money to being extremely wealthy was an important transition in their lives. And they wanted to have everything in their life also reflect that. And I'm not going to, I'll show you The first one. The first one is a loft in Amsterdam, the House of Curtains. And it's a beautiful old space. This particular house, if anyone knows Amsterdam, Amsterdam is it's a beautiful city, but the living spaces are very, very small because it's so densely populated. And so this particular space is 240 square meters, which in Amsterdam is enormous. And it was an old sugar warehouse, so it was open, 30 meters long, 8 meters across, and completely open. It had not been touched for almost 200 years. And so what we did is how could we damage something so amazing as a loft that had been untouched for 200 years? And we thought, since it was an old sugar warehouse, why don't we use the idea of the bags the sugar came in and create maybe a curtain space that is a series of tents within a space that form rooms. And by opening and closing the tents, our clients could then transform the space, and even the closets are made out of curtains. The clients that I was telling you about earlier, the ones that went from poor to rich, have this beautiful home in Mallorca. It's an old farm from the 1100s. And I'm not going to show you the whole project because it's not really important. What I am going to show you are these details that we did, again, about low intervention. And instead of filling the space with furniture, what we did is we just simply painted the impression of furniture. And again, one of the challenges is this is a well that's inside of their living room. So, I mean, we could have ripped it out and plastered over it and said, disgusting old thing. But it was leaving the history, and I think, again, going back to the little conversation that we were having about Russian society, how they want to be connected to the past, but at the same time to the future. I think everybody does. I think everybody likes a sense of security that you get from your past, but they also want the exhilaration and excitement of the future. And so this particular home, which I think is so interesting, is that they wanted a very contemporary space, but they had all these old things stuck in it. And so one way to handle it was to simply frame it up and to create an impression of what it could have been. So we're moving from super commercial down to kind of fuddy-duddy weird. This is the home in Connecticut of the family that was poor and now is rich, because they had us do this after the Mallorca home because they really liked it. And the crazy orange chair that you see there is a piece of garbage that I pulled out of a garbage can and put tape on. And how this happened was, and the reason that this is in there is for a very good reason, because it's disruptive. It disrupts the expectation. If you look around, like there's the Eames Lounge, the fabric on the settee is Paul Smith, the desk is Pete Hennig, everything's very designer. And so how do you disrupt that kind of expected designer experience in a home? And the funny thing was, when they were coming over for looking at what we were going to create and I can't remember why exactly, taken a chair out of the garbage and wrapped it in this orange tape that I had laying around. And I had the chair in the room at the same time that I was talking to him, and he turned and he saw this day-glow orange chair, and he goes, "That is fantastic. Where did you get it? I want one." I was like, "Well, I got it out of the trash can, and I made it." He goes, "Well, I have to have one." So we ended up creating a whole series of furniture elements for this guy's home. And what ended up happening is we ended up, and again, this is about storytelling and about leaving it open for interpretation. All of a sudden, a familiar object becomes unfamiliar when you start grafting things together and you start slamming things. It becomes ambiguous. Like, what the hell is that? And if you start combining things in different ways, all of a sudden, you have things that almost become art. Now, the reason that we have these examples is because this was actually in the window of the Banana Republic store in Milan during the Salon de Mobile 2 years ago. We did all this weird stuff for them as an installation. But we ended up loving this stuff so much that we just kept it on. And again, things don't have value until you give them value. The story gives them value. These are pieces of junk, I am not kidding. They are from the garbage can, and they're wrapped in tape. But all of a sudden, because we've removed them, it's very Duchamp. Talking about a visionary. He turned the urinal upside down and says, "Because I said so," and he tells the whole story, and therefore it's valuable. And that's the future. The value is personal. This is the door to my office, the one I share with my partner. And the reason I'm showing this to you is because, again, it's a solution to a problem. We had the problem that we wanted a glass wall because we're very transparent with our employees, but we also needed privacy to be able to have conversations that were confidential that no one could hear. And when you have glass on glass, you can't really seal the door, and sound travels very easily. So we had to either pick a wall or a door that was solid. And so we decided to pick the door that was solid. And again, we found this in the garbage, and we stuck it. We painted it black and stuck it in the middle of the glass wall. And as you can see, it has a very strong impact. It's a very simple, cost-effective solution, not expensive, but with a high emotional resonance, at least for ourselves. So great stories disrupt the expected. They make the ordinary extraordinary and build an irresistible brand halo. I think we've already proven that in our conversation. So what I wanted to do was show you some logos that if you take away everything, you still recognize the story. You immediately know the brand. There's no question about what that is there? But yet that's not a brand. It's two green rings with some text on it. And during the cocktail event that we had, I was talking to the gentleman who you're going to hear from this afternoon, who's the sound designer for Nokia. And he told me this fantastic story. He said that when planes land, or when planes were landing in airports, all the sales guys would listen to the when the plane landed and the phones went on. And the more they heard that sound, the more they felt like, oh, we're doing great in this region. It's like if they're landing in Europe, they heard a lot of everyone's like, everyone's going crazy. Africa, really loud. And then in the US, maybe not hearing it so much. That's, again, a brand story. That's a story that immediately you connect right back to something. And I got a couple of examples of these stupid, a yellow box. The power is not in the graphic. The power is in the story that you know from this graphic. That's incredibly powerful, and that, to us, is the future of design. Design is about designing this. It's about designing the intangible in the tangible world. And actually not even regarding if it's tangible or intangible. It's more about connecting to someone's soul, to someone's heart, and to understanding who they are as a customer and creating an experience that resonates with that customer. So for us, storytelling is the new design frontier. Make it worth experiencing, hopefully more than once, especially if you're trying to sell stuff. And if you have a story that you want to tell me, please, that's my email, george@uxusdesign.com, or go to our website. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for George? Any thoughts? I know I really appreciate being inspired about really the beauty of design and really that show versus tell, and it was gorgeous, so thank you for that.
Oh.
We have a question over here. Oh yeah, just so the group can hear. Thank you.
This wine you had with a blank label, there used to be but there still is an artist called Prince that for a while decided that his name isn't Prince, it's a symbol that nobody can pronounce.
Exactly.
With a wine that doesn't have a label, that doesn't have a name on it, how, if I want to buy it again, I can't remember what it was. Where can I find it? I don't know what to call it. I didn't see it written down.
That's a good point. You have to know law, and again, this is where you have to be clever about the resources, the limitations. Great design comes from limitations. So in the US, as you know, alcohol is incredibly controlled. And on the back, the front of the bottle has to have the name, the origin, the alcohol warning, like please do not drink this or else your babies will be deformed, and all this weird stuff that you have to have on a bottle. So what we said is what you saw on the front is actually the back. So when we submitted it, because every time you design a label, you have to submit it to the authorities in the US. And so we made this very clear, very simple label that had all the information they wanted and said, okay, there you go, that's the label. Great, approved. And then we said, okay, that's the back. And they stick it on the shelves the other way around.
Design thinking. Any other questions? Oh, there's Ray.
George, Hello? George, when are you going to do the first FMCG store?
A ski store?
No, the FMCG store. Fast-moving consumer goods store. Supermarket.
A supermart?
Yes.
I don't know. Someone should brief us.
But you haven't done any yet.
No.
Great opportunity there.
I guess what I want to say is I think we're in very, very exciting times right now. Anyone can start a business. I mean, we started our business, 2 of us in the back of our house. We have 40 employees. We work in 40 countries all over the world. I'm getting all choked up, my story. I'm a love immigrant, just like the gentleman from Armeco. And it's funny because we also live our design, and our rings, it's a simple silver band, but inside has pounded gold. Because the preciousness is personal and hidden, right? And today, designers have the ability to change the world. And I think that young people in the future, because of the connectivity and because of the ability of storytelling and because of this collaborative mindset, are going to change the world. They're going to have to, because things are going to get really bad if they don't. And I think that the ability of taking something that has no value and making it into something that has value opens up design in a democratic way like never before in the past. And it's no longer about architecture, retail, graphic. It's about experience, and it's about everything that it takes to create one story that has power and resonance. And so, I mean, support young people as much as you can.
That's great.
I got one more. I'm gonna break this up. I got one more question for you.
Sure.
You showed a lot of examples about what you did in a physical environment.
Yeah.
So that you can really immerse into the brand and you get the story across.
Yeah.
Did you ever had an assignment, or maybe did you think about it already, to do this online, to have a unified experience of the brand online?
We do that. We are not experts at it, and so therefore we collaborate. And what we do is we set up the envelope, and then the digital part is inserted into that. We don't claim, that's a whole other discipline that is so complex and changing so quickly that for us really the conceptual aspect and the execution of the physical space is where we focus our time and energy. And then we invite a collaborative agency to come in and insert the digital aspect. Yes, I do, but I don't have pictures of it. But I mean, we're working right now. I mean, we work with Procter & Gamble, we work with Selfridges, we work with Nike, we work with H&M. We work with all these big companies that require a completely vertical experience all the way through. So it's something that happens all the time for us. And sorry about getting all choked up, but I cry at the drop of a hat. And that gentleman, GE guy, where are you? I was calling the office yesterday, telling him the story about the little girl. I started getting all like, oh, this little girl said she wanted to take a ride again. Yeah, I'm so gay. Anyways.